Welcome to this week's edition of What If You Could. I'm your host, Brian Searcy. Thank you for tuning in. I tell you what, I've been very, very blessed since I've started this show that I've had great people on, and it is not changing any different this week. The guest this week is Nakia Douglas, the Executive Director for TRIO and Upward Bound Precollegiate Programs at the University of North Texas at Dallas.
Sir.
All right. Welcome, Nakia.
Thank you for having me.
Just to remind everybody, what if you could? There's a lot of problems in our society today, and what if we could do some of the common sense things? What if we could reintroduce the learning of personal skills, decision making, so that people no longer are divisive? They're no longer unwilling to have a conversation with someone that disagrees with them.
Exactly.
And one of the things I'm so excited about having you on is because of what you are doing at UNT North Dallas with these programs and who it is you're talking to. And even more than that, I'm excited because you and I are talking about how Main Street Pilot can help your programs, which we both agree really is helping the kids.
Yes, sir. Give
them the skills that they need to be successful. So extremely excited about that. So I'm in conversations with Mr. Douglas to support UNT Dallas and these programs, but I also was very blessed that I had the opportunity a couple weeks ago to come and actually speak to these young men and women on your career day during one of the summer camps. So that was awesome. So we're going to learn a little bit about you now, Nakia. 2004, that's kind of where I know that you really got into education. So tell us a little bit about how that all started and what you did in Dallas ISD.
Yes, sir. That was the second launching of my career in education, I would say, as I was transitioning from the classroom into administration. I'm actually a classically trained early childhood educator who started off as a kindergarten teacher in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I taught kindergarten, first grade, and fourth grade in North Carolina and also in Dallas. I left again after returning from North Carolina, went to the Central Texas area, began my administrative career in Georgetown and Pflugerville, and actually in 2004, I received my first principalship. I was 29 years old, and I was the youngest person on the entire faculty and staff.
And before you go any further, so I just learned some things about you that I didn't know.
Yes.
But everybody out there listening and watching this today, Mr. Douglas is one of the most patient people I have ever seen in my entire life when dealing with these young men and women. I understand why now.
Yes. Yes, sir. If you've come from witnessing students give you the hugs and kisses and wipe the snotty noses on you, to also now graduating students from the collegiate level, it gives you a different perspective. So I initially began my administrative career in the principalship as an elementary principal. I did that for 2 years, then became a middle school principal. I was there for a year, then was asked to transition to the high school. So literally I looped with my students from elementary, middle, and high school as their campus principal. June 27, 2010, I received the charge to begin, at that time, the All-Male Leadership Academy at Benjamin Franklin Durrell, which is now known as the Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy at BF Durrell, well, now officially at A. Maceo Smith High School. I was privileged to do that work and had a year to study best practices. So not only do you remember your own life experiences, but you also take an enjoyment in becoming a student again. And so in studying those best practices from St. Mark's, Jesuits, Cistercian, Bishop Dunn, Episcopal School of Dallas, St. Philip's, KIPP Academy, Townview, Irma Rangel, Fort Worth Young Women's Leadership Academy, was privileged to travel to Urban Prep in Chicago, Bluford Drew Jemison STEM Academy in Baltimore, and also to Beijing and Chongqing, China. I was able to and privileged to speak with principals, headmasters, teachers, students, alumni, board members, community members, what's worked and what hadn't worked. And if you would start a new school, what would you put in place? Took all those best practices and created what we would like to say a new paradigm of public education. I was privileged to do that work for 6 years. We've graduated 4 graduating classes. I was there for the first 2. To this date, of the 4 graduating classes, still 100% graduation rate. Young men have the opportunity to learn Latin, Mandarin, and Spanish. All the courses are pre-AP and AP. So just creating a new paradigm for what educational excellence can look like. We were real intentional when we were providing a private school education at a public school cost. I was privileged immediately after that to become an executive director over the entire feeder pattern. So literally my career as an elementary, middle, high school, magnet school principal I was in about a 10, 15-mile radius. Then I became the executive director over that area. So 75216-75241. I've been privileged to be there for the last 15 years, and most recently transitioned to my new position as the Executive Director of TRIO and Precollegiate Programs at the University of North Texas at Dallas, where again we are working with those students that are potentially first, second generation students, low socioeconomic background, who have had challenges academically, but have tenacity and or drive to pursue college education. And so now I'm privileged to be there at the higher ed level, still in the same zip code. Yes, sir.
There you go. So here's a tough question for you, and it may not be a fair question.
Yes, sir.
But all those things that you've done, what was your favorite?
Each one for different reasons and different seasons.
And I wondered that. So
yes, sir.
Give us a little bit, some of the highlights as to what makes those, how they were different, but what gave you the satisfaction out of it.
So as a kindergarten teacher, witnessing a blank slate and creating that curiosity and love of education. As a first and fourth grade teacher, looking at and building on the deficits and or gaps that I know that they may have missed in early childhood. As an administrator, understanding the necessity of my principal pointing to me as a classroom teacher for me to be effective, lend itself for my students to be effective. So as a campus principal, I was real intentional about making sure that my faculty and staff had the proper professional development for them to be successful. As an executive director, there were things that I wanted from my leaders when I was a campus principal, when I was a classroom teacher. So I made sure that I was not only resourceful, but also responsive and also present to support and guide and coach them during that process. And now at the university level, it's exciting not only to work with all of the students from across the district, but also on the pre-collegiate side, working with districts all over the DFW area. That's exciting from the perspective that your footprint is a little bit wider. The depth of conversations is more impactful, but ultimately how you get to transform lives from not only the students, but for the faculties and staffs and the communities is exciting. So every level creates a new paradigm, but also another level of excitement.
Well, that's awesome. So you've been able to really have fulfillment in all of those areas, but yes, I think you've also been able to learn. I do want to point out one of the things that I really picked up on you from your comments that you just made is your point about how when you were getting ready to be an executive director, you thought about what you would want in that position. And I think that that's extremely important for all of these young men and women to not just think about what's going to happen tomorrow or next week, but identify who they are, where they want to get to, and then start looking at those people that can give them that information.
Yes, sir.
I actually had some mentoring, and I wouldn't be surprised if you did some of the same things, that you don't just look at the people that you want to be like, the good people. You also look at the bad ones and say, all right, I'm going to take this and make this work for me from these good mentors, from these great mentors, these great leaders. But then, man, I would never do that. Yes, I would never treat somebody that way. So you commit yourself to not behave that way, which all ties into the need to have these personal skills.
Yes, sir. Another key component that you just pointed out and reminds me of that, just that reflective component. You learn from, again, the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
Those examples that you want to follow and those that, again, I would never emulate that in my life. And that even goes back to, being a father now. My father wasn't there growing up, and so I am very intentional on the time and the presence that I have with my kids. But also I'm intentional with bringing my kids around so they can see the work, so they can understand, that dad's not just leaving in the morning and jaw-jagging and not doing work. You come and experience and also meet your brothers and sisters. Meet those that are my peers, your father's peers in this work, because dad is not doing it alone, but also he's looking to make an impact not only at home, but also in the lives of others. It's been exciting to witness that because, again, I didn't have that growing up, and I don't want to make those mistakes. And so I am intentional, even when I am away from them throughout the course of the day, or if I have to travel, that I get back home and make that time, but also that they also get to come and shadow daddy, or at least see what daddy does in the lives of others.
No, and that is amazing. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm so impressed by you, because it's a holistic piece for you.
Yes, sir.
You don't behave one way at home and then a different way in the workplace and a different way when you're out with your friends.
Yes, sir.
You are become good at one, which makes you better at the other, which makes you better at the other, and you're going to make mistakes in all of those areas, but that's how you grow.
Exactly.
If you're not making mistakes, you're not growing. And that was one of the other things that impressed me about what you and your team are doing at UNT Dallas with the TRIO and the Upward Bound program is you're giving all these kids great thoughts, great ideas, a foundation on how to prepare, but you're letting them make mistakes and you're letting them fail so that they can grow.
At the core of who I am, I'm still a teacher, regardless of the title. And so what you were just speaking about, it goes into one of the quotes and one of the characteristics of leadership that we teach our students. Character is what you do when no one's looking. And so therefore, the true essence of you will exist no matter what setting you're in, no matter who you're with. That essence is going to illuminate the lives of others, or it's going to darken the lives of others. We're looking and leaning, and more importantly, teaching our students to illuminate the lives of others. So within the TRIO program, for our high school students, we have our Upward Bound, which are the first generation students who are in 9th through 12th grade. We support them not only during the summers with our residential program, but we have year-round academic support and also counseling. This is meant to give the students a platform, a foundation of strength and support for not only their academic growth, but also for their social and emotional growth. Then additionally, on the collegiate side at the University of North Texas at Dallas, we have our McNair Scholars, where we're doing the same thing for students that are currently the rising juniors and seniors that have an interest and also a desire to become doctors. And so we're building the next generation of PhDs, EDs, and JDs for our nation there. I said all that to say, to them whom much is given, much is required. I'm a product of Upward Bound. Again, single parent household, first generation college student. I was a decent student, but I learned work ethic through the program, and it became transformative. So I would like to say that if you look back over my scope in regards to my life as a educator, I've instilled and installed and expected the same strategies that were poured into me as an Upward Bound student within all of my capacities. And
for everybody that is out there watching and listening, when I went to the career day, I asked every single group that came in front of me, you know, what they about character, and that quote was, they all knew it by heart. And so I know that every single one of them that left the summer program, yes, they have that foundation down.
Yes, sir.
But then that's one of the things that you and I have been talking about is to have a continuing program through the rest of the year while they're in the program, in addition to what they're already getting through the TRIO and the Upward Bound program, as they use some of the concepts and new ways to take what they've already learned in conjunction with the ability to develop these personal skills and decision-making skills, and then continually grow that and turn that into a behavior.
Yes, sir.
So your program, your TRIO program, your Upward Bound program, I know that there's a lot of those around the country.
Yes.
I want to say, from what I've seen, and I've done quite a bit of research, that you have a model program.
Yes, sir.
What do you think makes it so powerful? Is it because of your team and how you focus so much on that educational piece, and you look at the holistic piece and understand it's how you behave in all the different aspects of your life, or would you accredit that to something else?
I'll say TRIO programs, Upward Bound programs are phenomenal, but we've been even more intentional in regards to creating and filling those social and emotional gaps. It goes back to our mission statement, just even with our entire TRIO program, develop students' academic, emotional, ethical, physical, and social skills for transformational impact in life, school, and leadership. When we think about it from a holistic perspective, we also teach our students that you can't believe, lead, love anyone else till you believe, lead, or love yourself. And so when you're
Amen.
instilling that in a child or a young man, young lady in this instance, sometimes it makes them look in the mirror and find out, what are the challenges that I'm facing? You know, how am I facing? Am I just putting up a facade every day when I walk into my home, or when I walk into the campus, or when I walk out in the community? When I know that if I'm having some challenges, if I'm having some moments of doubt and self-doubt, who can I go to? When you learn that you can look inside yourself, then also that you become resourceful enough to be able to go and talk to your parents, to be able to have that tough conversation with a counselor or a preacher or a mentor or a peer, then you're going to find a level of success. Myself, again, being a first-generation student, I knew I wasn't good at math and science. But what Upward Bound taught me was advocacy and to learn. And so as I learned about who I was individually as a student, I sought out those peers that were good in math and science. Hey, I'll tutor you in English or social studies if you'll help me in my math class or if you'll help me in science. We're teaching our students that same mentality of what you can't do for yourself. You have such a character that others are willing to help you and will help you. And so therefore it becomes a reciprocal process in regards to not only your success, but a shared success by all within your sphere of influence.
Powerful, powerful. I can't tell you how excited I am from Main Street Pilot to have the opportunity going forward to be working with you. So what were some of the greatest success that you saw with the kids during the summer camps that you just completed?
The greatest success, first and foremost, just comfort within themselves. Every morning with Morning Lyceum, that's the gathering where we would go through the 21 indispensable qualities of leaders by John Maxwell. And the students had to select one of 3 quotes. They had to do a quick write, but you also had to be prepared to speak and present. Initially, you would see the anxiety building.
Would have scared my wife to death.
the sweat beating off their heads, looking away, please don't call me. And I said, you can volunteer or be voluntold.
Exactly. The decisions that you make the decision.
Yes,
you are on the hook for this. You choose.
Yes. But watching the students' willingness to go from being reluctant speakers to becoming
that changed behavior.
Yes, powerful speakers, but also looking and listening to their voice as it was being defined. A lot of the students, unfortunately, teenagers, look for the definition of themselves through the eyes of others or through social media.
Absolutely.
But when you can define it for yourself, you become and create an impenetrable shell that will propel you to success. Because in spite of challenges, in spite of failures, you know that all I have to do is go back and revisit this. Let me go back to the lab and study myself. Or let me go back to my classroom and speak with this teacher about tutoring. When I understand this, I'm dangerous. I'm dangerous from the perspective that I'm taking full ownership of who I am and who I'm going to become. I'm also taking ownership in regards to when I get ready to select that college or university and the major. It's not that, again, I'm first generation and everybody wants to be a lawyer or a doctor. No, I think I want to go into botany because I love plants. Or I think I want to be a veterinarian because I actually like pets. To witness children's mindsets change, to see that spark in their eyes, the same way I saw as kindergarten students, gives me that joy every day. You know, I always joke with myself, if I didn't have a wife, 2 kids, and a mortgage, I could do what I do for free. But since I do have those, I need that check once a month.
Yep. There's 57 million kids in public school in our country. That's just public school.
Yes, sir.
And what you're doing that needs to transition across our entire country so that we can have a generation now that is ready to continue to make our republic the strongest country in the world.
Yes, sir.
You know, one of the things I talk about all the time are millennials and Generation Z and how people talk about, you know, they're lazy or they don't focus. There's a whole litany of you know, things that generation or baby boomers and Generation X think of them. The issue is that, yeah, they are doing things differently because they're the, you know, younger millennials and Generation Z are the first internet society that are probably, in my opinion, with all the time I've spent with them, they're some of the smartest people that have ever been on this planet because of how they can learn and how they can get information.
Exactly.
But they do have other things that are important to them.
Right.
So us, the older men and women that are, you know, currently business owners or those types of things, we need to understand that.
Yes.
But then what we also have to give them are the tools so that they can understand us. Because it's that communication that has to take place between the two of them, but between the generations.
Yes, sir.
So we can't just, like it was when I was growing up, you were told what to do, and if you didn't do it, you got in trouble.
Yes,
it doesn't work today.
No.
And you know, so that's why there's got to be that communication. That's why how you are empowering these kids. And I saw it myself.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
it was amazing. And that's why I spent a lot of time in a number of other schools, and I would love to see that passion, that ability to walk up and shake somebody's hand, look them in the eye, have a conversation, that all the kids, you know, would do that. I spend so much time watching these kids walking down the hallway on their phone, not even knowing anything that's going on around them.
Right.
So
what we expect, we have to teach.
Well, and so
Yes, sir.
some of the schools I've been in, I've come in to introduce our programs.
Yes.
And the teacher says, okay, everybody put your phone away, pay attention to Mr. Searcy. He's got some things to talk to you about for the next 30, 40 minutes. And they go sit on a chair and they're on their phone.
Right.
You know, so one of the things that you and I have talked about is these young men and women, the Generation Z especially,
Right.
they're looking at what you're doing first, then they're listening, then they're seeing if the words match your actions.
Yes, sir.
And if they don't, you've just lost all respect.
Yes, sir. That is true. So true.
You and I have had conversations. That's why who you are is defined by the decisions that you make, which then defines your character.
Correct.
And that's a combination of the words that you speak and the actions that you do.
Correct.
And that's why, like I said, you live exactly what you just talked about every single day. And even more than that, you're a mentor to the people on your team,
Yes, sir.
and they all act that way.
Yes, sir.
So it's an amazing program. And like I said, I'm excited to work with you and your staff and to work with these great kids and to take that and work with the staff at UNT Dallas.
The exciting part of what this partnership is going to create is going to fill that other void that you just discussed. We are dealing with a generation of students that are so technologically inclined that if we get out our comfort zones and just kind of dip our toe into the water, we can make those connections.
Yes.
And so while we may call them and pull them over and prod them over to our side in regards to how we communicate and how we learn, we also have to be willing to step outside of ourselves and go into their sphere of understanding, their sphere of influence, to meet and reach them also.
You know, I firmly believe that this has been going on for generations.
You're right.
But because of the technology, because of a number of things that are out there, it dramatically accelerated and nobody knew how to deal with it. So one of the key areas that Main Street Pilot is in now is supporting companies the ability to have this common language and to train both the current employees that are the older employees and the new young employees on how to have that common language so that they can be successful.
Correct.
And that's what we've just got to keep working on.
Yes, sir.
So is there any way that, oh, and by the way, Zach, I wanted to point out, I volunteered Real News PR. Next time, Mr. Douglas needs to take all of his kids on a field trip to come up here and see the studios. So
Really?
I'm going to put that out there that you guys have agreed to that. If you haven't, I'll talk to Jeff about that.
And I think I saw him shaking his head that is a great idea.
Yeah, hey, why not? The more the merrier. Bring them on up. Happy to educate.
Nakia, thank you so much for being on. Is there anything that you'd like to share with the listeners out there about how they can help the TRIO and the Upward Bound program? Are there people? Can people volunteer?
Yes.
Can people donate funds to help the programs? How can they get involved?
Definitely. We love volunteers to come out and share your stories, share your journeys. If you are interested in providing funds by way of donations, we definitely receive those also. But also in regards to experiences, much like we'd love to bring our students out here so they can see these facilities, we'd like to take our students out on field trips. But then additionally, if you're not interested in working with those high school students, we have our college students that are in the midst of their research. So if you want to not only get involved with our TRIO programs, they're at the University of North Texas at Dallas. We're mobilizing a section of our community, a section of our society that has historically been underserved. So we would love for you all to come and be a part of our work there at the University of North Texas at Dallas, then also more specifically within our TRIO programs of Upward Bound and McNair Scholars.
Well, you know I'm in. So
Yes, sir.
everyone, Nakia Douglas, the guest today. What a fantastic conversation. If you couldn't tell, he's extremely passionate about helping these young men and women, get them prepared to be the next leaders of our country, because truly that's where we are today. These young men and women that are going through his programs, that are his age group, they're going to be the leaders of our country in the next 15, 20 years. So we need to invest in them, and we need to make sure that they understand what patriotism, responsibility, about what our country's all about,
Right.
and understand that it's okay to have different opinions.
Right.
And it's okay to have conversations, but we need to get past that causes divisiveness. I would wager that Mr. Douglas and I don't agree on everything, but I will also wager that Mr. Douglas and I have no problem being friends, having conversations, and working to solve some of the problems and helping the young men and women that are in the TRIO and the Upward Bound program. So again, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday at 3 o'clock for What If You Could. Thank you very much.